He was stronger than I were in 99 and 97 when I defeated those former world champions. Or Chris Byrd became two-time heavyweight champion of the world. When I knocked him out in 1999, I was 244 pounds. Now I weigh less than that. I have trained, like I said, I have trained immensely. I love boxing. Boxing is mental, intelligence, science, sweet art of science. Yes, so I'm so ready. Yes, indeed, I'm so ready to participate, to be back in boxing and continue where I left off. I intend to fight the heavyweight champion of the world, Oleksandr Usyk. That's who I'm targeting because he reminds me of a version of Chris Byrd, the two-time heavyweight champion of the world. So Chris Byrd had more fights than Oleksandr Usyk. Chris Byrd had 26 fights and 0 when I knocked him out in the 5th round, and that's exactly how I feel about Oleksandr Usyk. I need Oleksandr Usyk, and I want Nigeria to support me in my country.
And there is Ike Ibeabuchi calling out the heavyweight champion of the world, Oleksandr Usyk, for a bout. He wants Usyk to throw him a bone. He compared him to Chris Byrd, which Chris Byrd, of course, fought Ike Ibeabuchi when he was like 18 or 19-0, not 26-0. But it was interesting to hear him call out Chris Byrd, because if you guys don't remember Chris Byrd was that guy that was very slick, very problematic for a lot of heavyweights, especially the Klitschko's, because he was the guy that was the resistance against the Klitschko's. He got a win against Vitaly. He got beat twice by Vladimir, later on in his career after, of course, he was no longer in that prime stage. He was beaten by guys like Povetkin when Povetkin was the guy to beat back in the day. However, the comparison, I think, is interesting. I think it's reasonable, right? It's reasonable. But this was in 1999. This is 2025. And you look at it and you're like, okay, what can you still do now? The equivalent of someone that someone you once were in 1999. You know what I mean? To me, it sounds again like he wants him to throw a bone, but I don't think that I don't think that he's ready. I don't think that it's fair for him to want to fight with Oleksandr Usyk. I think that he has to, fight these guys that he's fought or he needs to fight to get back into the ring to give him some rounds. And I'm not really even sure that Idris will do that. I'm looking at Idris Afeni, which is 18 with 8 losses, 15 by KO. So he's a banger. But I haven't seen anybody on his record, even his losses, that I've ever heard of. So I have to assume that these fights are local. And whenever time you have local talent, it's very limited of opposition. That's the problem with it, right? It's always a problem when it's limited in that way. I do think, though, that Ike Ibeabuchi was probably the best fighter that never was. He wants to call out Oleksandr Usyk, but my advice to Ike Ibeabuchi, because I think he's a living legend. I think he is like the Tony Ayala, before he got locked back up for the same shit. But I do think that Ike Ibeabuchi, based on what I saw and how he trains vigorously, he has whipped himself back into shape. He looks good for what he's doing. but we're going to need to see what he can do. But I think most importantly for Ike Ibeabuchi, though, I think he needs to keep his eye on the ball. Because if he's talking about Oleksandr Usyk, you're talking about a guy that is still, 15 years younger than you, active, more active. That fight between Ike Ibeabuchi of 1999 versus the Usyk that we have today would probably be extraordinary. But I'm not quite too sure about now. And since this is now 2025, I suggest my counterpunch to Ike, the President Ibeabuchi, is to focus on Athene, not Usyk. Work yourself up. Show that make a statement when fighting Athene. Knock him out like Moses Atoma took out Dillian White or any other of those opponents. Make people fear you. Make people notice you again. Make people get the buzz around you. That's what he needs to do. And I think it's a good bout. I think it's a good pick. It's definitely better than Mackenzie Morrison, a guy that only had one loss. I don't think that's right for him anyway. These are good tune-up bouts. I think he needs to gradually, slowly come back. Even Tyson Fury, after being out of the ring for almost 3 years, didn't just come back and fight Wilder. He had 2 tune-up fights. Especially if you are on that championship level or on that contender level. Right? And I think he once was, definitely, but I do think it is steps to be taken with Ike Ibeabuchi, and he shouldn't rush it. And I know he's eager because he's been locked away a long time, but I do think he needs to practice those wise things and words of patience. But you guys tell me what you think of Ike Ibeabuchi calling out Oleksandr Usyk for a bout. Of course, please subscribe. And you guys been Counterpunch.